He kicked my boots aside and muttered, "You're not the man of this house." So I pulled my workbench away from the wall he leans on, locked up my mower, and stripped back every tool he treats like community property. "You're not the man of this house," she said, standing in my workshop doorway with her sister, both of them laughing like I was the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard yet. So I quietly changed the locks on the shop I built, moved my tools into storage, and stopped fixing every broken thing she took for granted. And that was just the beginning of teaching her what happens when you confuse providing with permission. I didn't react when she said it. That's the part that still bothers her the most. My name is David Chen. I'm 44 years old, and I'm a master carpenter and custom furniture builder. Not the kind who assembles flat-pack garbage or does quick kitchen flips for reality TV. I do traditional joinery, mortise and tenon, hand-cut dovetails, and fine inlay work. I build things that last for generations, and for the last 8 years, I've done it out of the workshop I built behind the house I bought. The house, she thought, she controlled. When my wife Rachel said those words, we were standing at the threshold of my workshop on a Saturday afternoon. She'd invited her sister Kim over without asking me. Again. They were drinking wine, giggling about something on Kim's phone, and I was in the middle of gluing up a commission piece, a dining table for a client who was paying me $4,000. I had clamps positioned, glue drying on a timer, and I'd asked Rachel that morning to please not interrupt me during this specific 3-hour window. This was the critical assembly phase. If the glue dried wrong or the joints shifted, I'd have to disassemble everything and start over. She came into the shop anyway, Kim trailing behind her, both holding wine glasses like they were on a tour of someone else's property. "David, where's the Allen wrench set?" Rachel asked, not bothering with hello. "Kim needs to tighten something on her bike." I was holding 2 pieces of wood together, watching the clock. "Tool chest, second drawer. Please be quick, I'm in the middle of something." Kim walked over to my rolling tool chest and started yanking drawers open, not closing them, just pulling and looking and leaving them hanging. "Careful with those," I said, tension creeping into my voice. "Everything's organized." Rachel rolled her eyes. "It's just tools, David. Relax." "It's my workspace," I said, "and I asked you not to come in here right now." She laughed. Actually laughed. Then she looked at Kim and said it, loud enough for me to hear, meant for me to hear. "You're not the man of this house." Kim giggled, covered her mouth like it was scandalous but funny. Rachel took a sip of wine, leaning against my workbench, the one I'd built from reclaimed oak, the surface I kept perfectly flat and clean. "You spend more time out here playing with wood than you do inside with me, so no, you're not running anything, you're hiding." I set the wood down, carefully. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice level. "Get out." She raised her eyebrows. "Excuse me?" "Get out," I repeated, quieter this time. "Both of you, now." Kim looked uncomfortable suddenly, sensing the shift. "Rach, maybe we should." "No," Rachel said, chin up. "He doesn't get to kick us out of our own property. This is our house. That means this is our shop." I wiped glue off my hands with a rag, slowly, deliberately. "This is my shop. I built it. I paid for it. And you just contaminated my workspace during the most important phase of a $4,000 commission, because you needed an Allen wrench that's in the house garage. Leave." She stared at me like I'd spoken a language she didn't understand. Then she turned, grabbed Kim's arm, and walked out, slamming the door behind them. I stood there for a full minute, listening to them laugh as they walked back to the house. That night, Rachel acted like nothing had happened, made dinner, chatted about her day, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I said I had work to finish. She shrugged and scrolled through her phone for the rest of the evening. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask about the table. And she definitely didn't notice that I didn't say goodnight. Rachel and I had been married for 9 years. No kids. She worked in pharmaceutical sales. Good money, long hours, lots of travel. When we met, I was working for a custom cabinet shop, dreaming of going independent. She was supportive back then, encouraged me, even helped me scout properties when I wanted to buy a house with workshop space. I bought this place 5 years ago, 3-bedroom house on 2 acres, with a detached 2-car garage and enough yard space to build a dedicated workshop. I paid for it with money I'd saved from 10 years of side projects, a small inheritance from my grandfather, and a mortgage in my name. My name. Only. We'd talked about putting her on the deed. She wanted it, said it was symbolic of us being a team. But my lawyer, my buddy from high school who does real estate, pulled me aside and said, "Dave, you bought this before you married her. You built the shop with your own money. If things ever go south, you want this protected." I hesitated, but I kept the deed in my name. The workshop was my cathedral, 18 by 24 feet, insulated, climate-controlled, wired with 220 volts for my table saw and planer. I'd installed every outlet, every light, every dust collection port. I'd poured the concrete floor myself, troweled smooth enough to see your reflection. Every tool in there, from the $1,500 jointer to the $20 chisels I'd collected over the years, was mine, purchased with money from my business account. But over the years, Rachel started treating it like community property. Her sister borrowed my miter saw for a quick project and returned it with the blade dull and the fence out of alignment. Her father took my cordless drill set to fix something at his house, and I didn't see it for 3 months. A neighbor asked to borrow my pressure washer, and Rachel just said yes without asking me. When I complained, she'd wave me off. "Don't be stingy, David. It's just stuff. People help each other." "They're professional-grade tools," I'd say. "They're how I make a living." "You make a living," she'd reply, "because I pay half the bills so you can play in your little shop." That line stung every time, because it wasn't true. My business income had grown steadily. By year 7, I was pulling in $70,000 a year, not enough to quit my part-time cabinet shop gig, but enough to prove I wasn't playing. I was building a career. But Rachel saw it differently. To her, my workshop was a hobby room, a man cave, a place I retreated to when I didn't want to deal with real life. To me, it was my livelihood, my identity, the one place in the world where I controlled every variable. That Saturday wasn't the first time she'd minimized me. It was just the first time she'd done it in front of someone else, in my space, using words that made her contempt crystal clear. So I stopped talking, and I started planning. Sunday morning, after Rachel left to meet Kim for brunch, I went into the workshop and took inventory. Literally. I photographed every single item, every tool, every piece of equipment, every jar of screws. I made a spreadsheet with columns for item name, purchase date, purchase price, and current estimated value. 3 hours later, I had documentation for just over $38,000 worth of tools and equipment. I emailed it to myself, backed it up to the cloud, printed a hard copy. Then I called my buddy, the real estate lawyer. "Dave," he said when he answered, "what's going on?" "Hypothetically," I said, "if I wanted to legally clarify ownership of assets in my marriage, what's the process?" There was a pause. "You and Rachel, okay?" "Hypothetically," I repeated. He sighed. "In your state, anything you owned before marriage, or purchased with separate funds during marriage, is yours. But if she's been using it, contributing to maintenance, or if you've implied shared ownership, it gets murky. Why?" "She told me I'm not the man of the house," I said. "In my workshop, in front of her sister." Another pause, longer this time. "Jesus, Dave." "So, what do I do?" "Document everything. Show separate finances. Don't let her claim she contributed to the shop, and for God's sake, change the locks if you're serious about this." I thanked him and hung up. Monday, I went to the hardware store and bought a new deadbolt for the workshop door. Commercial grade, keyed entry. I installed it that afternoon while Rachel was at work. Tuesday, I moved my lawnmower, weed trimmer, and pressure washer to a climate-controlled storage unit across town, 10 by 10. Climate-controlled, $120 a month. Rachel came home that evening and asked where the mower was. "Storage," I said. "Why?" "Because it's mine, and I don't want people borrowing it without asking." She laughed. "You're being ridiculous. It's a lawn mower." "It's a $400 commercial mower that your dad returned with a bent blade last summer," I said. "So yeah, storage." She shook her head like I was a child having a tantrum. "Fine, whatever. I'll hire someone to mow the lawn." "With your money," I said, "not ours." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" It means I'm not paying for lawn care when we have a perfectly good mower that you won't protect from being loaned out to people who don't take care of it. She stared at me, and I could see her trying to decide if this was worth fighting about. She decided it wasn't. You're being petty. I'm being clear, I said. On Wednesday, her sister texted me directly. Hey, David, can I borrow your sander? Doing a project this weekend? I didn't respond. She texted again an hour later. Hello? I replied. No. Kim forwarded the exchange to Rachel. Rachel came into the workshop that evening without knocking. Tried to anyway. The new lock stopped her. She knocked. Hard. David, open the door! I was in the middle of routing a drawer front. I turned off the router, brushed off the dust, and opened the door. Yeah? Did you lock me out of the workshop? I installed a lock. Yes. Why? Because this is my workspace and I need to control access. Her face flushed red. This is insane. You're locking me out of my own property? Your property? I asked, keeping my voice even. You're not on the deed, Rachel. The house is mine. The workshop is mine. The tools are mine. You've never contributed $1 to any of it. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I pay half the bills. You pay half the utilities, I corrected. I pay the mortgage, the property tax, the insurance. You want me to pull up the bank statements and prove it? She looked like I'd slapped her. You're keeping score now? That's what we're doing? You started it, I said quietly. Saturday, when you told me I'm not the man of this house. She laughed bitterly. I was joking, David. Jokes are funny, I said. That wasn't. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to the house. Thursday, I took the next step. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank, moved my business income into it, set up automatic transfers for my half of the agreed-upon bills, utilities, groceries, and shared expenses. Everything else stayed separate. Friday, Rachel came home with her father. I was in the workshop when I heard them talking in the driveway. He's being unreasonable, she was saying. I need you to talk to him. I walked outside. Her father, Greg, was standing by his truck, arms crossed, looking uncomfortable. David, he said, nodding. Greg. Rachel says there's some confusion about the tools in the workshop, he said carefully. No confusion, I said. She claimed I'm not the man of this house, so I'm clarifying ownership. The house is mine. The workshop is mine. The tools are mine. If people want to borrow things, they need to ask me directly, not go through Rachel. Greg glanced at Rachel, then back at me. That seems reasonable. Rachel's jaw dropped. Dad. Honey, it's his stuff, Greg said, shrugging. If he wants to be particular about it, that's his right. She looked betrayed. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side, Greg said. But I also borrowed his drill and forgot to return it for 3 months. He's got a point. Rachel turned and walked into the house, slamming the door behind her. Greg looked at me. She really said you're not the man of the house? I nodded. He winced. Yeah, that's rough. He paused. You guys gonna be okay? I don't know, I said honestly. He clapped me on the shoulder and left. Saturday, Rachel tried a different approach. She made my favorite dinner, wore the dress I liked, smiled at me over the wine like nothing had happened. I've been thinking, she said. Maybe we overreacted. Both of us. I set my fork down. Did you? What? Overreact. She sighed. I shouldn't have said what I said. I was trying to be funny and it came out wrong. I'm sorry. I studied her face. She looked sincere, but I'd seen her close sales before. I knew what her sincere face looked like when she was trying to get something. Okay, I said. Apology accepted. She smiled, relieved. So, can we go back to normal? What's normal? I asked. She blinked. You know, you do your projects, I do my thing, we share the house. And the tools? She hesitated. We can talk about boundaries. I already set boundaries, I said. They're working fine. Her smile faded. You're not going to unlock the workshop. No. You're not going to bring the mower back. No. Her expression hardened. So what, you're punishing me indefinitely? I'm protecting my assets, I said. There's a difference. She stood up, leaving her plate half finished. You're being a child. And you're realizing you don't have access to things you never owned, I replied. She went to bed angry. I stayed up late, refinishing a jewelry box I'd promised a client. Sunday, 2 weeks after the initial incident, Rachel's mother got involved. Diane showed up unannounced, knocked on the workshop door. I opened it, surprised. David, she said, can we talk? I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. Sure. Rachel called me crying last night, Diane said. She says you've locked her out of parts of her own home. Her home? I asked. She's not on the deed. Diane's eyebrows went up. She's your wife. I'm aware, but the house is mine. I bought it before we got married. I've paid the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance. Rachel contributes to utilities. That's it. Diane looked uncomfortable. I didn't know that. Most people don't, I said, because I don't advertise it. But when your daughter stood in my workspace and told me I'm not the man of this house, she made it clear she doesn't respect what I provide. So I'm making it equally clear what belongs to me. Diane was quiet for a moment. What do you want, David? An apology? I already got one, I said. What I want is for her to understand that I'm not optional. I'm not a convenience, and I'm not going to be disrespected in my own space by someone who thinks marriage entitles her to ownership of things she didn't earn. Diane looked at me for a long time. You're not going to bend on this? No. She nodded slowly. Okay. She turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I think she was wrong to say what she said. But David, is this the hill you want your marriage to die on? That's up to her, I said. By the end of the month, Rachel and I were sleeping in separate rooms. She stopped trying to negotiate, stopped asking about the workshop, stopped pretending things were normal. We existed in the same house like roommates who didn't particularly like each other. I kept working, kept taking commissions, kept building furniture that would outlast most marriages. 6 weeks after the incident, Rachel asked to talk. We sat in the living room, formal and stiff. I can't do this anymore, she said. Okay. She looked surprised, like she expected me to beg or argue. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? I asked. You made it clear how you see me. I adjusted accordingly. If that's not acceptable to you, then yeah, we probably can't do this. She wiped her eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Neither did I said honestly. But I'm not going back to being taken for granted. Is that what you think I did? She asked. Take you for granted? Yes. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. What if I apologized again? She asked. Really apologized. And we went to counseling. I considered it. I did. But then I remembered the look on her face when she said it. The laugh. The casual cruelty. I don't think counseling fixes contempt, I said. She cried. I didn't. Rachel moved out 2 months later. We're separated now, working through the legal stuff. The house is mine, no dispute. The workshop is mine. The tools are mine. She kept the furniture. I didn't argue. I can always build more. What I learned is this. Respect isn't something you negotiate for after it's gone. You either have it or you don't. And when someone tells you who they are, especially in front of witnesses, believe them. I kept the workshop, expanded the business, took on an apprentice kid fresh out of trade school, eager to learn old techniques. He watches me work sometimes with this look of awe, and I remember what it was like to be that hungry. Why do you do it this way? He asked once, watching me hand-cut dovetails when a router would have been faster. Because the right way takes longer, I said, but it lasts. He nodded as he understood. I think he will, eventually. So, was it revenge? Or was it just a man refusing to subsidize his own disrespect? You tell me. Drop a comment about what you would have done, or if you've ever had someone treat your work or your space like it didn't matter. And if you want more stories like this, real lessons about boundaries and consequences, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it lets me keep bringing you these stories. Because in the end, we're all just trying to build something that lasts. And sometimes, That means knowing when to lock the door.